All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
The Monday recorded audience, you are all so kind. Please find a seat as we prepare to shine a light on all that is wonderful in America and the world. There's a little something somewhere, and we will find it. So cool to be here, of course, with Tony, who makes all things technical happen on this show.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. And Kim, who makes all things happen on
Kim,
the
how are you?
She's quite thorough in pointing out various things. Yes, so she's getting better. I'll be honest with you, she's getting better.
I blame you.
All right, maybe it's my fault for her slow progress, but I'm just saying that it's getting better is the point. So
you do not know what you are talking about.
I have much to get to today. First into the chat today was who was first into the chat? I think it was Zero Sum at 9:30 Pacific time. Then Nullifidian with the question about that whole med-bed card that Trump is going to offer every American. Yeah, I wouldn't wait by the mailbox for that, but I wouldn't wait for the mailbox to give you much. After all, there are some changes in that world as well. But this is the America we end up with, and we will sort out a lot of the issues confronting America at the moment and also confronting the world, because sadly, the rest of the world has to deal with a smack-talking, arrogant pomposity that defines America at the moment. We have become the ugly Americans. I always thought during the war in Iraq, we were the ugly Americans, but now we've just taken a, hold my beer. Let me show you how to really be the ugly Americans. I can smack talk the UN. You're all a bunch of losers. And by the way, fix that escalator in my prompter. Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister, is how can I not have a great day when Lucy McAllister is part of our scene? Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's my favorite McAllister, $20 super chat.
Big shout out.
Yeah. As soon as Kim starts spinning off super chats, she could become my favorite McAllister.
What?
All a question of being bought out. Trevor Starr in Hollywood says, Mark is never late. He always gets here right when the show starts. Thank you, Trevor.
That's it. Yeah.
Trevor also noted, I guess, that I said happy birthday to him. Oh, here it is. Last week, someone said happy birthday to me, and Mark repeated it. I think you should tell Mark it's my birthday every Monday and see how long it takes him to figure it out. I guess he claims his birthday regularly on Mondays. Is that it, Courtney?
I don't know.
I mean, Courtney. Kim. Yeah. Courtney just reported in that somebody bought $200 worth of merch.
Wow. It's going to be a very Merry Christmas.
No, it's just that really shows me, there's a lot of fun stuff on the merch site, getmarkmerch.com. And we have all of our resistance shirts, peaceful resistance. Mm-hmm. And we have, and a bunch of them, a bunch of different colors. Of course, they are pet approved. Born to peacefully resist, born to peacefully protest is the mug. It's actually the mug I think that I have one of my old school mugs today. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the Born to Peacefully Protest is my new favorite mug. And there's all kinds of great colors. There are all kinds of great art layouts. Courtney did all of it. She's so wonderful. Peacefully Resist. You see that one, that white mug, Tony? Yeah. Peacefully Resist. I really like that one. I just like how simple it is. I like the message and our logos on the back. Anyway, there's that and a bunch of stuff you can wear. So I mention it because, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. They're cool mugs. They're cool shirts. There's the barbecue apron. There's the sweaters that I'll start wearing as fall gets along. But I mention it because, yeah, those things are fun. But when I see that somebody bought $200 worth of merch, those are people really supporting the show, So really do appreciate that. That's, in a sense, like a super sticker or a super chat. So it means so much when the audience steps up. We're really the new independent business model when it comes to media. So we're completely dependent on the support of our listeners and viewers, and really do appreciate it. And speaking of that, I've
received a lot of positive letters.
I got an email from Australia.
What?
I know. Milton, the Aussie bookbinder.
We have a big following in Australia, actually.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I'm encouraged by that.
If you look at the YouTube will tell you where you're the most popular. And I think our top city is New York and Los Angeles and Bay Area, San Francisco, San Jose. But in there, Australian cities, a couple of them popping up. So
Wow.
What?
I'm very impressed and pleased, and my dream is to go to the Australian Open, which is coming up in January.
well, they'll know who you are.
I'm at least,
Yeah.
it would be nice. We could stream the show from there. It is truly my dream. I hope it's far away, and a lot of logistics go into a trip like that, but it continues to be my dream. This goes, let me get back to the email if I can, please. So
Sorry.
I've received a lot of
Carry
positive
on.
letters.
hi, it's Milton here in Australia, the Aussie bookbinder. Yeah, the Aussie bookbinder. I thought I was a member, but for some reason I could not see the payment going to you, so I've done it again. Can you please confirm the payment is coming to you now? I have to do that. I have to confirm. Thanks so much. Absolutely love the show. It's on at 4 a.m. here.
Wow.
I mean,
What?
I know. And I am working from around 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. I'm working from around 1 a.m. 6 days a week. So I do look forward to it coming on and appreciate your show and all who get it on for us to watch.
Is
That means
bookbinding
Tony, that means
middle of
Kim.
the night thing?
Yeah, the guy
Like
works overnight and he likes to watch
Like-
and listen to the show.
Like making donuts is an early morning thing. Bookbinding is
I guess.
the night shift job.
What a family kind of legacy business that feels
Yeah.
like it is, I think he sent a video. Didn't he send a video not too long ago within the last year?
I don't know.
remember that. Maybe I've imagined the whole thing. Gosh, I don't know. I'm
You living in dreamland again?
I can't remember much anymore.
Where are my weed smokers at?
I think maybe but Milton, the Aussie bookbinder, thank you for your support. Thank you for being a Patreon member and supporting our show. And I'm so glad that we get into Australia, and maybe there are a few people down in Australia who enjoy the show. So it's 4:14 a.m. in Australia right now. It's it's GMT plus 10. Wow. Good work, Tony. So
Thanks, Tony.
shout out to our pals in Australia. I do the hack American imitation of the Australian accent, but I know that I would just anger you, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But
I think they
do-
watch the show specifically because you don't do that.
that may be as well. Yeah, you're right. But it's very cool wherever you are, anywhere in the world. We appreciate you being here. We come to you from the US of A, and the USA is not your daddy's USA anymore, as you're probably aware. And we detail a lot of what's going on. I'll just reiterate, we're on from 2 to 4 in the Eastern time zone of the US, and we're on from 11 to 1 in the West, but you can listen and watch anytime. We then become an audio podcast. After the show is done, it goes up to Spotify, iHeartRadio, goes to Apple Podcasts, any of those places. You can find the Mark Thompson Show, share it, and that just helps improve our footprint. I do want to tell you who is on the show today, because it's a pretty special show, and I've been looking forward to it all weekend. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
in just about 15 minutes, Gary Dietrich, who is the ninja from iHeartRadio, he is their political analyst. He will join us, and he can give us a sense of the government shutdown, the impending shutdown, the plan strategically to blame the other party if there is a government shutdown. Also, I'm going to ask him about the troops that are now on their way or already in Portland, Oregon. Donald Trump, as you know, he is the president and he can send troops anywhere he wants. At least that is the expressed theory. He is doing it based on the flimsy constitutionality that he points to, but we will ask Liz Oyer, who joins us in hour 2, about that. Liz Oyer, the former U.S. pardon attorney. She is brilliant. She is wonderful. I've got a mad crush on Liz Oyer.
Oh,
Just so smart and just so good at breaking stuff down legally. So I think it's her superpower, and we'll run a little bit. Didn't I send you, Tony? I sent her latest Instagram post, which is kind of good. I don't know. You don't see it. Tony's looking around like I don't remember you sending me anything. But anyway. Regardless, we'll get into a lot of who Liz Oyer was. She was fired from government because she wouldn't grant. Remember, she's the U.S. pardon attorney, and across her desk comes a request to give Mel Gibson his gun back. The gun was taken, and his gun, what am I trying to say?
he had his gun rights restricted because he committed a
domestic
felony?
abuser. Yeah, he was a domestic abuser.
Crime, yeah.
But what is that? A license with a gun, or the permit is the word I'm looking for. Permit is the word. I would have awarded points for permit. And her rule is, and the rule is, that once you've been convicted of domestic abuse, you do not get your permit license back for a weapon, for a firearm. He is a friend of Trump's, and so she was fired as a result of that and holding the line on that decision. She's become, since then, quite outspoken about a lot of the system by which pardons are issued under this administration. As you know, pardons have been issued in an extremely liberal way, quite broadly to all the J6ers and to anybody who, it would seem, is able to, put it bluntly, pay for it. So she will be joining us in hour 2. A quick shout to Chaplain Fred with a $20 super chat. Wow. Good to see you, Chaplain Fred. Chaplain Fred is rapidly on his way to getting a statue on Thompson Terrace in the metaverse. Hi, Mark, Kim, Tony. May grace and peace be with you today. Now you're really talking like a chaplain, Chaplain Fred. Yeah. Mine was ugly.
Due to the shooting.
Due to the shooting, but a good day. A skunk sprayed my backyard. Indeed, a good day ahead.
Yikes.
Well, if it was a holy skunk, who's to say that spray wasn't holy spray? So I'm just saying that could be. Thank you, Chaplain Fred. Appreciate you very much. All right. Without any further delay, I'd like to move on, if I could.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is the case that there was another shooting over the weekend. A Michigan. This guy shut up a Mormon church. Is that what it was, Kim?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then set it on fire.
This is a truly twisted brand of cravenness. And
happened in Michigan.
Yeah.
And we know that at least 4 people have died, but there were others taken to the hospital in critical condition. Really scary. You know, whether or not you subscribe to the Mormon religion, you know, the Catholic religion, as we saw a shooting in Minnesota at a Catholic church recently, this whole opening fire when people are worshiping, it's awful.
Yeah, of course. It's another soft target that these people choose, you know. I mean, schools, places of worship, these are, you know, easy targets for these guys. Now, they haven't identified a motive yet. I know, as usual, there's a scramble, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was left, he was right. I mean, this one, I think, is a little less than a stone's throw from the answer, because the Mormon church shooter had a Trump sign outside his home and wore MAGA merch.
This one doesn't fit so neatly into the box that Trump is trying to put all this violence into, does it?
I mean, the Trump administration has dry cleaned government websites and Justice Department references to any growing neo-Nazi white supremacy movements in America, and his dry cleaned the references to white nationalist violence. So now we'll start all over again and again. Public record showing that Thomas Jacob Sanford, who's 40, lived in a brick home in Burton, Michigan, a 15-minute drive away from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. That's where he opened fire on hundreds of congregants. He rammed into the church's front door with his pickup truck before he started shooting, later set the building on fire. He was killed in a gunfight with 2 officers within 10 minutes. They cordoned off his block, and images of his residence show a blue Trump poster hanging on his fence just above a red stop sign. The Trump sign outside his home has fueled a lot of speculation about his politics. Some social media users have used the Trump placard to claim he is a Republican, while those across the aisle see the placement of the poster just above a stop sign as an indication that he wanted to stop Trump. I mean, that you really see how twisted people can become. Records show he had no recorded party affiliation. Michigan has open primaries, so party registration isn't required there where he lived. But it appears that he had some MAGA merch. And any speculation, according to state police, about his motives are exactly what it is. Speculation. So,
That's pure speculation.
So that's where we are on this.
He was a veteran. He was a member of the United States Marines, went to Operation Iraqi Freedom, served there for a year, had a year-long deployment. So yeah, he was a member of the military. Yeah, and we've seen that before, with the shooting up of military forts and whatnot, where people. It just shows me it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, MAGA, religious, not religious, what have you. There are crazy people everywhere.
I think that what Kim has said really is the last word on it. These are crazy people, okay? I don't know, right, left. Now, I think it's worth spending a beat on the fact that more crazy people are radicalized as a result of right-wing ideologies. There are, frankly, more people who are part of a gun culture on the right than there are on the left. But that doesn't mean that those on the left aren't capable of being crazy nut jobs the way this guy's a crazy nut job. They are crazy people. So when Trump comes out and says, it's all coming from one political party, those crazy radicals on the left, no, the only thing you've said that's accurate is the crazy part. These people are crazy. To take up arms against anyone, it's horrifying. Guy goes into it, it's horrifying. So, I mean, the only thing worse is to somehow weaponize that horror for your own political means. And that's what's happening in America now.
Exactly what's happening. It's all for a purpose. And this is all a reason to crack down on political dissent. Doesn't want anyone disagreeing with him at all, and is now willing to, go after people that he feels are not in line.
Well, after the Charlie Kirk murder, you heard and saw members of the Trump family saying, okay, if that's the way you want to do it, that's the way we're going to do it. This is war now. Now it's on. All this stuff that they said, which was absurd. Again, Kirk murdered by a crazy guy. Now, I also spent part of the weekend with all of these different conspiracy theories and all these different videos about the Charlie Kirk murder. I get it. The palm pistol where, some guy moves and you see a little bit. And they're everywhere if you want to see it. And we were thinking, and we're still debating, a distillation of all that stuff and somehow presenting it to you so you can evaluate it on your own. But here's the part that doesn't make any sense of all the conspiracy theories, if I can just segue into this for 30 seconds. Explain to me, and by the way, a lot of the video is, I would put it into the compelling narrative category where you go, wow, that does look like that guy's going like this and holding his hand like that and firing that palm pistol. There's another one where there's a guy, he's supposedly got a cell phone pistol and he holds it up with both hands and it looks like he's cocking it type this, and his movement is concurrent and synchronous with the sound of the bullets firing. So you end up in this place where you go, how can this not be? I mean, it looks like one of those guys or both of those guys or multiple shooters were involved with this Charlie Kirk murder. Okay, only one big thing. Explain to me why this kid confessed to his parents, confessed to his pastor, and ultimately confessed to cops. And then the more we learn about his motivation, we think maybe it had something to do with his roommate, with the romantic tie to the transitioning roommate. I mean, there seems to be a lot to Charlie Kirk's murder that we kind of know. I'm not saying, he's his own brand of crazy, right? But the idea somehow that, well, he wasn't working alone. There were actually several people there. It was really like the JFK killing. All right. I mean, guys, maybe it was some elaborate scheme to murder Charlie Kirk, but sounds to me like you've got all of these people shooting. You've got the guy with the cell phone. You've got the guy with the palm pistol. You got the other guy on the roof with the long gun. How come there was only one shot fired? I mean, if all this sounds like, the OK Corral, the way you guys tell it. So I don't mean to always crap on a conspiracy theory. And, as I say, just because someone's a conspiracy theorist doesn't mean that the theory that they're putting forward isn't true. So I'm ready to take a meeting on a lot. But I'm just saying we're really getting into an area with, I think, some very thin motives yet established. But they may come to be established. I just haven't seen them yet.
Well, the whole thing is being used, in addition to several other violent incidents, as a reason to squash dissent. And on Thursday of last week, Trump issues this presidential memo directing all of the executive branch to take what they're calling a whole of government approach to fighting what they are deeming domestic terrorism. And they go on and they list all of the recent violence against folks on the right, and they leave out the murders of the people in Minnesota, the lawmakers in Minnesota. They don't talk about Paul Pelosi. They don't talk about any attacks on people of the left, but they say they talk about Kirk and even the murder of the United Health CEO Brian Johnson, the assassination attempts against Trump. There was, I guess, an attack that was an attempted attack against Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. And they say...
we'll come back to that in a second. Go ahead, continue.
And they say that all of these attacks, these specific attacks, right, again, leaving out any attacks that go the other way, are a culmination of sophisticated, this is from the memo, a culmination of sophisticated organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence. All right. And then it says these organized campaigns are designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcomes, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. Well, what does that mean? And it goes on. They talk about they're not wanting anyone to foment political violence. And what does that mean? Anyone who espouses, this is a quote, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support for overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility toward those who hold American views on family, religion, and morality will be subject to suspicion, according to this memo. What have we entered? What is that? What dark, sinister horribleness is that? We're all under suspicion if we don't agree with Trump. And what happens to us when we're under suspicion?
Yeah, the idea somehow that there's been a radicalization if you speak out against Donald Trump. that's kind of absurd on its face based on the number of people speaking out against Donald Trump. He's not a popular president. And so the policies of this MAGA right, this extreme crew, there's a lot of pushback, just pushback in terms of, look at all the people who, there are probably 100,000 podcasts that have been hatched overnight. Everybody with an opinion now has a podcast or a TikTok following, and they should. There's no problem with that. But I'm saying that, is that radicalization? That's just basically espousing your viewpoint toward the administration, toward the regime. I mean, let's face it, it's a pretty aggressive regime when it comes to clamping down free speech. You go after Colbert, you go after CBS, you go after ABC, you go after Colbert, and successfully in all those cases, primarily because those holding companies, the companies that were in control, the corporate entities that are connected to those things, they need government approval for various things. Then you go after Kimmel. And you go after Kimmel with this FCC chief who comes on like a mobster. I mean, I really think that was a fair parallel made by several people. We can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And actually mentioning the control that government has over Sinclair and Nexstar stations. Those are the companies that own all those TV stations, all those ABC affiliates. Like, those licenses are in play all the time. We can pull those licenses anytime we want, is the view that the FCC chairman was espousing. So anyway, my point is that, this is an administration that has taken a very aggressive view of speaking out against it. And ultimately, they really go after Jimmy Kimmel. And it was only, I give the guy great credit. I mean, tremendous courage to come on the way he did, undaunted. And so you see the way in which government power is being leveraged against the citizens in America right now, against their free speech. And I don't think that that's an exaggeration in the least. So when you see what Kim is talking about, a memo from the president talking about speaking out against the government and America, I mean, speaking out against America as domestic terrorism.
Yep.
Again, when you say speaking out against America, it sounds like you can do the arithmetic any way you want. So that allows you really to openly go after anyone you want. This is why the weaponization of the Justice Department, and this isn't just a talking point that's produced by the right, you're actually seeing it, where an enemies list is expressly noted by the President of the United States. Go after these people. It's the old line, bring me the man, and I'll tell you what he did wrong. I'll tell you how he broke the law. So it's scary. And just on the James Comey thing, because I know that's kind of floated to the top of things, we'll talk to Liz Oyer in the second hour about it, and I can even mention it to Gary Dietrich. But I've said this before. I don't like James Comey at all. I don't like him at all. Not one cell of his body do I like. I think he's the a-hole who served up this election to Donald Trump the first time. Now, maybe his intentions were good, but he's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican who wanted to see a Republican win. And I think he's essentially honest, but I also think he can rationalize whatever decision he wanted to make. And that's the rationalization that he made when he announced, I'm reopening the investigation at the FBI over Hillary Clinton's emails. The whole election came down to 48,000 votes. You're telling me that didn't affect it? So Jim Comey can burn in hell for all I care. But what's happening to him is wrong. It's a concoction of a weaponized Justice Department. And again, we'll talk more with Liz Oyer about this in hour 2. But it's clearly the case. But the idea that they could weaponize this same Justice Department against a Kim McAllister, or Mark Thompson, or you watching. We've noticed you've reposted a bunch of stuff that is against the current government. I mean, this is the stuff of despotism, of authoritarianism, and you're seeing it played out. And as far as Jim Comey is concerned, he's likely going to be able to beat these charges because you can point to the political witch hunt that was underway. I mean, the president expressly called it out. And you can also look at the case and see how flimsy it is, given that no one at the Justice Department wanted to follow through on it. No one wanted anything to. This case had 10-foot pole marks all over it. You had major MAGA attorneys at the Justice Department, your own MAGA people, Mr. President. They all said, no, There's no there. There's not enough evidence here. We cannot bring this case. So you fire that person, that's Eric Siebert, and you hire this insurance attorney. She's never even prosecuted a case, and she hatches your egg for you in a poorly worded and oddly filed indictment that and presentation before a grand jury that it barely got across the finish line with the grand jury. You know, the whole thing, you can get a jury to indict a ham sandwich, exactly, but not always, and they just got it. They barely got the threshold of grand jury votes to make this indictment possible. So all I'm trying to say is Comey himself will likely get by, but the case I made to you, I think it was last week, and I'll make it to you again, I'll just reference it, and I'll make it to you again probably in the future, is something really worth keeping in mind, because I think it's something that all Americans should be aware of. And that is, the government can ruin your life. The government doesn't need to get a guilty verdict on anything. They need to begin an investigation. They need to freeze your assets. They need to just begin the process, and you will go bankrupt defending yourself. Your life will be ruined. So, again, we get into the legalese and the back and forth and all of the punditry of the law, and you can go, oh, this case doesn't hold any water. It doesn't have to hold water, because once the government comes after you, they can drain you of your life force. Start with your money, and then they can so disrupt the rhythm of your life, your kids' lives, etc., that it's depressing. And so all I would say is, be careful. This is a government that seems really bent on that kind of destruction. So
be careful, says the guy who's speaking out.
No, exactly. I mean, I would be lying if I told you I wasn't concerned.
Yeah.
So, all right, from the heavy to the YouTube craziness of smash the like button
with your iron rod.
Smash the like button, please, everyone. It's all we have left. Smash
it with your iron rod.
Yeah, the thumbs up helps us in the YouTube universe. It'll help make sure that this feed shows up in other people's feeds who may not even know we are here. So it's a great pleasure to recognize our next guest, and let's do it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He is the political analyst for iHeartMedia and also across the CBS television stations when it comes to politics. Love chatting with this guy. He's the great Gary Dietrich. Hi, Gary.
Hello, Mark. Mark, there's been times when I thought, I'd love to steal that, smash it with your iron rod, and just appropriate it on national television sometime. I don't know how, but find a way just to sneak the drop in with some kind of gnat sound in the background. I don't know. I just love that thing every time you play it.
I love my drops, and you're welcome to steal any of them if you ever feel the need. We'll help facilitate it.
But for attribution only, of course.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right, I want to get you right to the shutdown of the government. We've been to this precipice before, and usually something's worked out at the 11th hour. Last week, you saw the president cancel a meeting with leading Democrats. And usually the meetings with leading members of the opposing party help get you across the finish line of, keeping the government open. And now I guess the president is saying, yeah, I'll meet with them. So maybe there's some light at the end of this dark tunnel, although it seems as though there are a lot of interests on both sides that might be served by a government shutdown. So give me your calibration of all of this, and maybe that'll help get us through.
Yeah, Mark, you really laid it out well, because, there's the policy things, and then, of course, sometimes weighing even heavier is the politics. And that is made even more consequential by the gargantuan stakes it seems like we talk about every week of next year, okay? There were now 13 months from many people saying this could be literally the most consequential midterm elections of certainly of the modern era, in the last few decades. Some people say of their entire lives. So all the other stuff, like the setting meetings, canceling meetings, all the rest of it, as you well know, Mark, much of that is simply political theater. It's simply gamesmanship. It's 11th hour stuff. You see it in almost every, I'm not going to qualifier. Every state capital, every time we reach one of these things in Washington. And so today is the day, because you're supposed to have the big four. In Sacramento, we call it the big five because the governor's included. Anyway, it's the Republican and Democratic leaders from both houses supposed to be meeting with Trump at the White House today. Why is that important? Because tomorrow night at 11:59 and 59 seconds is when all hits the fan. And this can cascade pretty quickly, as you know, Mark. People, who cares? Well, yes, some of the big things, people probably know this drill by now. Things like national defense, things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, none of that can be touched. It's all the discretionary funding. But the things that are included in discretionary often surprise people. Yosemite Park could be shut down immediately. I mean, there's just a whole host of things. We don't have time to go down the whole list, but there's a lot of things that could be impacted immediately. And this time the stakes have been raised because there's talk about, at least bluster about, we're going to do permanent layoffs. It's not just going to be a 1-month furlough of federal employees. So this is a big deal. But I'll just say a quick word about the politics, Mark. The problem right now is exactly what you said, my friend. And that is that, you have to get to where one or both sides say, ouch, this is not going to be good, right? For my party, for our reelection chances, for both parties sometimes come to this conclusion. Wait, we're both going to suffer in this potentially. This time around, unfortunately, for the people of the United States of America and beyond, it looks like both parties are making a very risky calculation. We could benefit from a shutdown.
This is where I'm glad we're speaking to you, because you can at least throw some history, even though I understand that we're living in times during which maybe history doesn't apply to everything, because we are seeing things that are so very unprecedented. But historically, isn't the party in power usually blamed for the shutdown?
It really depends, Mark, because the party in power is an interesting notion also, because sometimes, let's just say, for example, you have a Republican president, but a democratically controlled House and Senate. Well, where's the power on fiscal measures? Many people may not realize this, but all fiscal measures must originate in the House of Representatives. So if you have a House, and then on top of that, a Senate that looks like it's to the people's way of thinking, being obstructionist, even if there's a Republican sitting in the Oval Office, the Democrats may get blamed. And that's why this calculation is a very inexact science, if it can be called a science at all. Because honestly, Mark, people are sitting around what may now be non-smoke filled rooms, but there are still rooms jammed with operatives trying to figure out, okay, listen, can we get away with this for a day or a week? And here's another thing, Mark. Remember that the Democratic base was really unhappy with Schumer and the gang earlier this year when they thought he caved. And so there's a big part of the Democratic machine, and a lot of the Democrats in Congress say, listen, I don't care what it takes. I don't care what we have to risk. We cannot go along and then fill in the blank this time around.
I'm going to take you back to what you just said, because we are not in those times where Congress, I would suggest respectfully, control things fiscally. You've just seen the president fully enabled by the Supreme Court clawing back a lot of appropriated money for many of the programs that he has disagreements with, okay? Everything from USAID to domestic programs, all right? So we've now seen the president flex and exert his power over a lot of these things, and I'd include tariffs. He doesn't have any control to impose tariffs unless you buy this BS emergency thing. Again, my words, not yours. I know you're far more even-handed about these things, but what I would say is that the old school thought that, well, Congress controls the money, and not anymore. The other point I would make, again, you don't have to stipulate to all these things. This is just a little pushback. But the other thing I would say is, in your hypothetical, who has the power? If Democrats have Congress and you have a Republican president, sure, then you have an issue. But that's not the case here. You have a Republican president, Republican House, Republican Senate, and Republican Supreme Court. You tell me who claims credit for the government shutting down.
See, this is why I think it's going to be a particular challenge for Republicans this time around, because you don't have a so-called divided government. You've got Republican House, Republican Senate. Now, admittedly, the margins are small. And in the Senate, on these fiscal measures, including averting a government shutdown, you've got to have 60 votes to avoid a filibuster. So there's going to have to be, and everybody knows this, because, by the way, Senator Rand Paul has said, I'm not voting for the measure that's already been passed by the House, by the way, and this is the one defensive posture that the Republicans have put forward. The House has already passed a standalone continuing resolution, the so-called CRs. People get sick of hearing this term, but essentially what it means is, okay, we need more time. We're going to continue what we already have, okay? Like whatever spending already exists, we're going to just continue that. The proposal now is until the end of the third week of November. So that's been passed by the House. That's sort of the gauntlet that's going to be thrown down to get in this big meeting in the White House. Hey, listen, why wouldn't you vote for this? And by the way, there are some Democrats in the Senate that say, look, that's our best shot right now. Just kick this thing down the road for 7 weeks or so. Let us go hardcore on these negotiations, particularly over healthcare. Those are the things that Democrats really want to see changed before they're willing to vote yes on anything that's more permanent in terms of budget stuff. But to your point, Mark, the challenge for Republicans is going to be just that. They control the levers of power, except needing those 60 votes, which means 8 Democrats, because Rand Paul's not going to vote, he said, for this regardless. Need 8 Democrats in the Senate to get this across the finish line. So there's the math. There's the politics of it. How this thing's going to end up, I guarantee you, nobody inside the Beltway knows for sure.
It's interesting also, just as a point along the way that is related. There is a push now, and it was always the case, less government was sort of a GOP talking point for so long. I say talking point because even under the GOP, they grew a lot of government for a lot of different reasons. But let's leave that aside. I mean, just generally the ethos of the GOP has always been less government. Now I would say they've supercharged that. There's a sense that, we want to dismantle government. They did dismantle government. They brought in Musk at the beginning of this thing. It was the craziest thing. And he brought in a bunch of tech bros with him, and they essentially fired a bunch of government workers, closed down a bunch of agencies, USAID, et cetera, hobbled a bunch of others. So they've really done a pretty good job as far as they're concerned of dismantling things, but they want even more. In other words, less government is their plan. So closing down the government ain't so bad to a growing number of people. You can tell me to what extent, a growing number of people who subscribe to that kind of philosophy, but you can tell me to what extent within government, okay, because Congress and the president, they are still in government, to what extent that kind of radical view of closing government is a good thing is a persistent viewpoint.
Well, here's a little insider take, all right? Inside the halls of Congress, the literal halls and offices, this ain't popular with Democratic or Republican staffers. Why? They don't get paid. They do not get paid until this thing gets resolved. So it sounds weird, but their staff pressure can mean something sometimes, right? And they're like, listen, boss, I know, but, okay, right? So there's some of that. The other thing about it, Mark, that's really interesting is that you have certain members who, Republican members that are starting to push back on some of this Trump closure stuff, and especially with specific things that may impact their states. And like, no, I'm not going along with that, right? So I think it's important, especially in these times, Mark, to talk about the fact that there is not a real monolithic sense in either party about some of this. And that's, I think, really important for people to understand. We know there's been a lot of talk about progressives in the Democratic Party versus more moderates, and by the way, the progressives perceive Schumer as not part of their gang, right? They really don't. And, on the Republican side, there's hardcore Republicans who say, man, he's got these old fogies in the Senate. They just don't go along with what the people, the MAGA base wants. And you know what? To some degree, they're right. There's certain senators on the Republican side who say, okay, that's enough. I'm not doing this anymore. So it's going to be really interesting. My point is, Mark, for the internal dynamics of both of these parties to see how this plays out.
I'm wondering also to what extent the changing face of, there was a special election where a Democrat won. I think there was another where a Democrat won. You talked about and referenced this sort of thin majority that the Republicans have. To what extent, when it comes to something like the Epstein files and forcing that vote on the Epstein files, there isn't an anxiety, a palpable anxiety that's coming from the head of state, from Donald Trump, and the notion that congressional support, which again is so very thin, might be melting away. Well,
it's melting away seat by seat, because remember, there's been 4 vacancies in the House, already a slim majority for the Republicans. But of those 4 seats that are, and they're now being filled, as you rightly point out, Mark, we've had a couple special elections. There's a couple more to come. The general sense is, because of just the nature of those districts and the way they were drawn, that 3 of those 4 seats are likely to go to Democrats. Okay. That is going to make a gargantuan problem for Mike Johnson. Okay. Already narrow majorities, 4 House Republicans that so far, led by Thomas Massie, in Kentucky, say, we are voting for those Epstein files to be released. Period. End of story. Don't care what Trump says. Don't care, Mike, what you said. Don't care what anybody says. So this is a real problem, because until the midterms next year, when all 4 of those seats are seated, Mike Johnson's majority could get even tighter and more difficult, affecting things like the Epstein vote that you point out, releasing the files, but a whole host of votes for the next 13 months.
Mike Johnson is slow walking the swearing in of the winner of the special election. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Well, that's part of this whole game, okay? It's part of, so the people elect their representative in a special election, and then they do have to be formally sworn in. It happens in every state legislature, every seat in Congress, okay? And so, you just kind of conveniently, well, I've seen this go the other direction too with Democrats. Well, we just can't quite get around to scheduling when we need to swear that person in. And that's done for strategic reasons, right? As you're pointing out about the Epstein files. I think the game behind that right now is very simple, Mark, and that is continuing to try to mollify the MAGA base and others who very much want the Epstein files released by the houses in the committees in the House, for example, releasing more of their own files, et cetera, trying to water down the impetus to release the entire bailiwick. I don't know that that's going to succeed right now. That air does not seem to be out of the balloon to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to the Epstein files on both sides, and a lot of interests that are going to prevent the release. But this is a new threshold where you can force the vote. So you'll actually see who is voting against the release, and then they'll have to own that politically. Take me to California real quick, because this is something that you know the cast of characters so well. I think it's kind of like a Greek tragedy in the characters that are so kind of clearly drawn. Newsom, Harris, the back and forth. It's all filled with that sort of I think jealousy, ambition, money. So for these reasons, I sometimes see it as I don't mean to see it only as theater. I mean, I think it's very, very important. But give me the latest on what's happening, because Harris and Newsom have done a back and forth, and it feels almost theatrical.
Yeah, well, the stakes are raising, Mark. I mean, there's no question about it, because it's clear now Newsom is running for president. He already has been, I contend, for the last 12 to 18 months. Harris now, with her decision not to run for the California governorship next year, has pretty much thrown down the gauntlet. And there's wide belief that there's only one avenue left for her, and that's running again in 28. What does that do? It immediately sets up what was already a behind-the-scenes battle between them and their staffs and funders and volunteers and true believers. Here's 2 Californians, maybe the two highest profile Democrats right now, one could say nationally, who are going to be going at it not long away from now. I mean, certainly no later than after the midterm election, but many people contend by early next year, these folks are going to be out on the campaign trail, as are all the potential contenders in both parties, raising money, getting endorsements, etc. So last week, here's how the stakes were raised. When Kamala's book came out last Wednesday, and she said in the book, well, I called Gavin when the president, that is Joe Biden, made his decision to drop out. And I said I was jumping in, and the president got behind me. I immediately called Gavin, and he cryptic message back, basically, hiking, call you later. And in the book, she says, I never got the call, basically, in so many words. He didn't call back, I think is the words, whatever it was. Gavin then said, well, I'm sure she must have known that, hey, things happen. He said, I didn't know that number when I was on the trail. And by the time I was going to text her back or whatever, call her back, we were already drafting my response to getting behind her. Well, there's a lot of people that don't believe any of that. Okay. Because why wouldn't you just text back and say, hey, Kamala, I'm on board. She contends there was nothing. So, Mark, I mean, it's real clear now. There's no love lost between these 2 campaigns, potential campaigns. And let's see where it goes. But 2 high-profile Californians and national Democratic figures look like they are at absolute loggerheads.
Well, you identified this. I remember at the time when the Harris ascendance was requiring everybody to kind of sign on in the Democratic Party. And there was that sense like, should there have been open elections and, open primary in some way to sort of establish who would have the shot? And it was all sort of done in this way. Biden had to be pressured, then he had to be pressured again, then had to be really like super pressured, and then he finally dropped out. It was like the 11th hour, all this. And I remember the conversation with you because we were talking about Newsom, and you said they're political rivals. It would be a bit out of character. You didn't say it like this, literally, but it was your point for Newsom to kind of sign on to Harris in any kind of really high-profile way, right?
Well, remember, Mark, that Obama and Pelosi and others kept very overtly or somewhat quietly saying, we need a primary. We need a primary. Newsom was among those, and he floated his name out there. There's no secret now. He was testing the waters and really wanted that primary to go forward. I think when it became clear very quickly that was, that got squashed, as you know, by the Harris people and the Biden people. And finally, people like Pelosi and Obama just kind of acquiesced, rolled their eyes and said, well, you only got 107 days now. We better just throw our lot together here and make this thing happen. That's really how it went down. But it was very clear that Newsom was angling for a shot in that open primary. And he kind of said as much, hey, listen, we should all get involved. I mean, he was fully prepared to run against Harris in a primary and win.
Love our time together. We didn't even get to Portland and sending troops into American cities. We'll save that for next time, but we are going to continue in the next hour talking a little bit about that with a legal mind to kind of give us the sense of that. But you're just so great on the politics, and it feels like a real high-stakes political moment in America right now, as you say, on some level, even though we visited this moment before. It exists in a different environment that feels far more intense. So I really appreciate, as always, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Have a great show, my friend.
All right. We'll see you again. Gary Dietrich from iHeartRadio and the CBS Television Network. And I just want to mention, Gary comes to us through Bill Campbell at RE/MAX Gold. He sponsors Gary's appearance. If you're relocating into or from Northern California, you need a highly respected real estate professional. Bill Campbell is your man at RE/MAX Gold. Call or text Bill, 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474. It's Bill Campbell, RE/MAX Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on. Very, very excited. By the way, there is an event going on in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have a big Bay Area audience. Cindy tells us that there is the San Francisco Alzheimer's Walk. Is it Alzheimer's or Alzheimer? Can anybody help me with that? I mean, is this a...
Google it. It's Alzheimer.
Alzheimer. So it's the Alzheimer Walk.
Right.
It's October 18th at Mission Bay Park.
The San Francisco Walk, but they're all over the Bay Area as well.
Yeah, the San Francisco Walk takes place at Bayfront Park. And you can find it, I think. Well, you can Google the information, Alzheimer's Walks, SF Alzheimer's
Google
Walk.
it.
And it's in Fairfield, Rohnert Park. Kim's aunt organizes the one in Rohnert Park, apparently.
What?
Rohnert Park. Yeah.
Rohnert Park is in the North Bay.
Yeah, it's where they do it. I think they do it at Sonoma State University.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rohnert Park Walk is October 4th.
Mm-hmm. They're all different dates.
Yeah. The San Ramon Walk is October 25th.
Mm-hmm.
The Alzheimer's Walk in San Francisco and in Fairfield is October 18th. Yeah.
So you could probably do all of them if you wanted to.
I mean, these are people who already have Alzheimer, and you're confusing them by giving them different dates about the walk. I mean, it just doesn't...
Who is having that conversation?
I'm saying it's a flaw in the strategy. But as Kim says, the virtue in the strategy is that everybody can go to all the different walks if that's your jam.
There you go.
So thank you, Cindy, for that. And I hope that mention anyway brings additional people out to the walk. It seems like a really great thing. Alzheimer's disease is just the scourge, truly the scourge of modern life. You know, as we've gotten older, we've been able to extend our lifespans. The idea somehow, though, that you retain mental acuity becomes so very important.
Acetaminophen, commonly known as Tylenol.
Is that going to be tied to Alzheimer's as well, sir? Is that your thing now? My God.
Well, it's like you can, I feel like I could deal with raggedy hips or knees or joint pain, like things that happen as you get older. But the thought of not remembering something or anything, or of being like alive but not being myself anymore, that's what scares me the most.
Oh, of course. I mean, look, all these horrible diseases at the end of life. I mean, ALS, Alzheimer. I mean, it's just, they're just two ends of the same spectrum, and it's all bad, right? Where you're all there, but your body starts to shut down, and you're still fine on the inside. I mean, it's all grim, man.
Yeah.
The end of life, quality of life is everything, right? Which is why the idea somehow that if you are facing down any one of these things, you should have any number of choices for palliative care, and also for, if it's really grim, being able to say goodbye to your friends and family and whatever, and maybe not have to live through it. I mean, I understand really grim stuff, but we've had guests on the show talking about it, and these are adult conversations. So there you go. I do have news that I wanted to touch on related to what I thought is something that we predicted on this show.
Oh.
Tony, do you have was it Meet the Press, where Thune, who's supposed to be like the, kind of the level-headed Republican, John Thune, is asked about something that, what did I predict would happen with these ridiculous tariffs? I said, here's what's going to happen. The farmers are going to get crushed because you're putting these insane tariffs on, and they're going to be reciprocal tariffs back, or countries are just not going to do business as a result. So like a country like China, a huge consumer of soybeans, et cetera, they're going to go away. And you think that America is the only place they can get it? Guess again, they're going to Brazil. We talked about this. He said these very words. Run the clip.
To talk to you about the president's tariff policy. This week, he announced a slew of new tariffs, including 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals, kitchen cabinets, heavy-duty trucks. This week, he acknowledged that farmers are hurting because of his tariff policy. He said he'd use some of the tariff revenue to actually help farmers who are being hurt right now. Take a listen to what President Trump had to say.
Stop right there, Tony. That's what I told you he was going to do. I said he's going to take care of the farmers who are going to get crushed by this, and he's going to use tariff money to do it. And I wasn't being some incredible, insightful Nostradamus on this. It's exactly what he did in Trump 1, the first season, when he crushed his farmers and the farming community, and he used monies, federal government monies, to give them bailouts so that he wouldn't lose that base of support in all of those states affected. Go ahead, run the rest of it now, please. Thank you.
It's been 3 years since we've had this car.
Oh. So Thune then answers that point about the fact that Trump is now going to dump a bunch of tariff money back to those businesses that have been crushed by his own tariffs.
Well, look, I think that the farmers, and I represent a lot of them, and they want nothing more than open markets. There are markets right now that aren't open to some of our commodities. As a consequence of that, we've got a big harvest coming in here in South Dakota, corn and soybeans, and no place to go with it. So what the president has said is, I'm going to support and I'm going to help our farmers. And so we are looking at, I'm a member of the Senate Ag Committee, have been for some time, and we're looking at potential solutions to make sure that we can help support farmers until some of those markets come back. I think part of it is that the president's trying to achieve with his trade policy reciprocity with countries that have been taking advantage of us for a long time. And I think most of us support that. I think a lot of our farmers support that. They are anxious. They want to see markets opened up. And so when I speak to the president and his team about this, I always reiterate the importance of keeping agriculture front and center when you're negotiating trade deals. But at the end of the day, our farmers are probably going to need some financial assistance this year, and a lot of the revenue coming in off the tariffs is what they would use to provide that.
But Leader Thune, why not ask the president to roll back? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and there's precedent for doing that. I mean, there are many times in the past where this is different because you got tariff revenue coming in, which you can use for that purpose. But this is not something that we haven't dealt with before.
Why? Yeah, you can stop right there because you had open markets. Let's cut the crap. Well, I just want to see those markets opened up. I know our farmers want nothing more than open markets. You had them. The farmers were fine. The farmers were selling those soybeans to China. You had that was your biggest customer. If Trump had been smart, he would have come in and not touched anything. You had the leading economy in the world. Instead, out of some fever dream, he has these tariffs that he pulls out of thin air, and they are screwing everybody. American consumers, farmers, auto production, fill in the blank. And this is where we are. You're in this place where this guy, who's the leader of the GOP in, the Senate, comes on and he's trying to twist himself into a pretzel to somehow justify the way that his constituency has been screwed by these ridiculous policies. Well, fortunately, we got that tariff money coming in, so we'll be able to you didn't need the tariff money. You had actual money coming in to farmers who want not to live on the dole, but to actually have a business that they have likely been involved in for generations. Here's the news out of Indiana. The country's in the middle of a tariff standoff with President Donald Trump, where delaying orders for American shipments, now more expensive to retaliatory tariffs, may provide China leverage in negotiations. The sheer amount of the crop, the soybean crop, to China is immense. China has not yet placed an order for U.S. soybeans. If a deal is not reached before South America's soybean crop is ready, the consequences for U.S. farmers could be catastrophic in the coming years. It's not just this year, dude. You are turning the economy of farming on its side with these ridiculous tariffs. Some will have to cut back on costs. Corn and soybean producers are having to face down real issues, and tight margins could mean that their bank loans will be defaulted on. If things don't change in the next year, said an Indiana farmer, I will know somebody, meaning there is going to have to be some kind of relief. There could be some relief on the way. Trump indicating that he wants to use tariff revenue to supply aid to farmers. But farming is a livelihood that may be going away for many of these various families who've been involved in it for generations. So, again, I mention it because we think of ourselves, and I understand this, kind of as we have this myth of American exceptionalism, that somehow this stuff won't affect us. Our farmers, they farm the best stuff. We have relationships with buyers. But these open markets that Senator Thune is talking about, they existed. And now they don't. So that's the story on the tariffs, but it bears mentioning because there's a real price that's being paid by many associated with the farming community and with the American business community across the board. And now you saw that just today, Donald Trump just kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah.
And he is announcing a 100% levy on foreign-made films.
What?
Yeah. Hollywood's in trouble. So I'm going to slap a 100% tax on movies made outside the U.S. He said that movie production, quote, has been stolen from Hollywood. And the U.S. is no longer dominant in the way we produce motion pictures. I will be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside of the United States.
Wow.
Well, here's the problem. So much of every movie, I shouldn't say every movie, but many films, it's a little like the auto industry. So much of it is done in different places. Tony can tell you about this. I feel like, don't they record on sound stages in London? And they,
because London gives really good tax breaks right now, so they do it there. Vancouver gives huge tax breaks, so they're going to go wherever it's cheapest.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why everyone went to Atlanta for a while, right?
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, do you consider like the James Bond or the Bourne Identity films to be foreign films? A lot of them are shot foreign locations, and they'll have to be, as usual, it's a half-baked idea. It shouldn't have even been baked the half that was baked. Anyway.
A lot of movies are filmed in Canada because it's cheaper. And I know they filmed that new series, Chief of War, that is supposed to take place in Hawaii. They filmed it in New Zealand because otherwise it was too not affordable.
Of course.
I will tell you that I have my own tariff situation over here. I ordered a camera from Canada for my daughter's birthday in July, and I just got a note from FedEx with a little letter from Homeland Security that I owe $44 in tariffs.
Oh, man.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know, Kim. Why would you order a camera from Canada?
You cannot say you love your country.
I seriously
wonder. It was
wonder.
a used camera that she wanted, and she found it for a great price on eBay. So we bought it, and apparently it came from Canada.
All right. Have it your way.
Yeah.
It's going to affect all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to turn the economy on its side. It's going to happen. I gave you the farming example, and the farming narrative is going just as we said it would with the farming bailouts now. But I mean, the auto industry is in this, and now he's got, these tariffs on heavy trucks. And I mean, he's serving up these tariffs like a short order chef.
Even
and he has no idea
cabinets.
what he's no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I need to move along.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've become such a fan of our next guest. It's an extraordinary thing that this person, again, a public servant for so long, she was the pardon attorney for the U.S., was essentially chased out of government over the Mel Gibson situation. You remember the situation with Mel Gibson? He was convicted of domestic abuse, and then he wanted that license for the firearm back, right? And that flies in the face of existing law. And Liz Oyer said, I can't do that. I mean, just the history of horrors that have been wrought on those who've been victims of domestic abuse, who've then been able to retain a firearm or get access to a firearm, that list is pretty awful. So she pushed back. Mel Gibson's a friend of the White House, friend of Donald Trump. I think he gave him some ambassadorship. Remember, he gave he gave Mel Gibson, Sly Stallone, Schwarzenegger, I think was one of them. John Voight might have been one of them. He's a big MAGA guy. He gave them ambassadorships in Hollywood. In any case, but she held the line. I've got mad respect for her. And now her analysis on things related to the law, I think it is second to none. She's the brilliant Liz Oyer, everybody. Look at you, Liz Oyer. Hi.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me back on your show.
No, very excited to have you here. I, of course, I'm a paying member of the Oyer Lawyer Substack, and I encourage everyone to do similarly. In fact, we'll have a link under this video so that many watching this can just click through and become part of the crew that gets the benefit of your takes. Wow.
Thank you.
The Justice Department now, Liz, this is a total disconnect from any moorings associated with constitutionality and sort of the history, even the troubled history of America.
Yeah, the Justice Department is in a historic crisis. We've never seen anything like this before, and it's really intentional. It's a lot of what Donald Trump has been doing over the last 8 or 9 months coming together, coming to fruition. He, on day one, decided that he was going to turn the Justice Department into his personal law firm. So he started installing his personal attorneys in positions of power throughout the Justice Department. All of the highest ranking DOJ officials are people who worked for Donald Trump as his personal lawyers. His attorney general, Pam Bondi, messaged to the entire workforce on her first day in office that we all work for Donald Trump. She sent a memo to over 110,000 employees of the Department of Justice saying we work for Donald Trump. And at the same time, the president and his team have rooted out the career experts, the non-political employees who could stand in the way of implementing the president's political agenda. That includes people like myself, as well as people with oversight of all sorts of non-political functions of the department, like ethics, professional responsibility, transparency, the types of things that are intentionally safeguarded with career non-political employees. And by doing all of this, he has created a situation where there's really no one left in the Department of Justice to resist his will. He is now able to bulldoze through the department anything that he wants to see happen in the justice system. And that includes prosecuting his enemies, as well as rewarding his friends and donors with special treatment in the justice system.
What's the old line? Bring me the man and I'll show you the crime, or I'll show you there's the despot's sort of adage, you know. And
yes, exactly. That's very much his approach to the justice system.
And so he's named those people that he wants, which is the thing about Trump. There's no sleight of hand, you know, it's out there and he's saying it and he's posting it. So, you know, bring me the head of James Comey and bring me the head of Adam Schiff and bring me the head of, whomever. Anybody who is his perceived enemy, these FBI people, these underlings, I mean, Miles Taylor, et cetera, you know. But on some level, I was making the point, Liz, earlier that when the government comes after you and they even begin an investigation or you're a target of an indictment, it can be ruinous. I mean, you can go bankrupt trying to defend yourself. They never even have to bring charges and your life can be destroyed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Being the subject of a criminal investigation is no joke. It is incredibly invasive, it's costly, it's time consuming, and it really can ruin your life. For that very reason, there historically have been a lot of safeguards in place about when a criminal investigation can even be initiated. But those safeguards have all been stripped away and removed. And Donald Trump is using the process of investigating people as a punishment unto itself. He has tweeted about this. He knows that there's a cost to being investigated. And his view of it is, well, it happened to me, so it's fair game for me to inflict that on other people, regardless of whether they've actually done anything wrong.
I want to ask you about the demand that Trump has made that troops show up in all of these American cities to protect various things, ICE facilities, federal buildings, in the case of Los Angeles, et cetera. That would be, it would seem patently illegal were it not for the fact that he seems to be doing it over and over, and it seems to now be upheld on some level by higher courts. Can you give me the legal aspects of that?
Well, troops cannot be used for domestic law enforcement purposes. So there's some debate about what the purpose of these troops being there is. And Donald Trump doesn't really care whether it's legal or not. I mean, that's the bottom line. He's just going to go forward and do it without waiting for any court to tell him whether it is or is not legal. He's just plowing forward. This is basically his approach to everything, is to act first and then deal with the consequences later if a court intervenes and says it's not legal. So there will be litigation challenging this, and it will eventually likely get resolved by the Supreme Court, but it's very unlikely that the Supreme Court is going to allow an injunction to stay in place to prevent it from happening. And in the meantime, Donald Trump will have his troops where he wants them, and he will be able to do a lot of damage in the interim before we get any final resolution on the legality from the Supreme Court.
Thank you for making that point. It's one that I've made from the beginning, which is that this, as you say, is an established Trump pattern. He can do so much before there's any kind of legal judgment against him that would necessitate him having to sort of recalibrate or refigure a strategy.
Right.
Exactly. It's a way in which the undoing of America can happen, and you sort of can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. It's what's happened at the federal level. I mean, I couldn't believe the way that the Doge crew and Musk and his little band of tech bro wannabes were allowed into government, able to scrape government systems for all kinds of data and to dismantle government. I mean, major government agencies being hobbled from EPA to USAID in a month's time. And the legal challenges just couldn't be mounted more quickly enough.
Yep, no, they went in there with a wrecking ball and they did irreversible damage before any court could even weigh in on whether it was legal. We're now seeing that our court system is really too slow to address and react to many of the unprecedented things that this administration is doing. They're just not things that anyone ever imagined happening before. And so they're all raising novel issues of law, and it's taking quite some time for courts to untangle the legality of some of these issues. And in the meantime, many people are suffering as a result. In the case of the Doge example, there are people who lost their jobs, who've been unemployed, who have had their lives ruined. That is especially so in the DC metro area where I live. We have seen the economy suffer, the housing market suffer. We have seen so many people dealing with food insecurity because they've lost their federal employment or employment that was adjacent to federal employment, like federal contracts. It's really just wreaked havoc on so many people's lives. And there's just no sign that this administration cares at all about the collateral damage they are doing to many Americans in the process.
Yeah, I grew up in Washington, D.C. My dad worked for the government, and all my friends' dads and moms worked for the government. One of my friends' mothers was the Secretary of Treasury for a while. One of my friends' dads was Department of Commerce head. So Secretary of Commerce, it was, you realize these, and a lot of them, leave aside the heads of agencies, but a lot of these people have, like yourself, really are public servants. You have a history in your case, Liz Oyer, of public service. Weren't you a public defender for a considerable amount of time?
Yeah, I've spent the majority of my career in federal service. And for most federal servants, serving their fellow citizens is a calling. It gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of mission. There's this whole myth about deep state bureaucrats being people who are just collecting a paycheck and not earning it. That is absolutely false. The people who work for the federal government are people who could, in most cases, be making more money in the private sector, but they choose to serve because they believe that it is an important mission and calling. And the displacement of those people is really a tragic consequence of the approach of this administration to governing.
Well, hear. So well said. For you, once the Trump administration, but it was really Donald Trump who did it with personal fiat and in a sweeping way, pardoned all those January 6thers, without regard to how involved with the violent overthrow they were. There were Proud Boys, there were these 3%ers, there were those who were beating police officers within an inch of their lives, alongside those who were more just there and had some like one toe in the water type thing. But in a sweeping way, they were all pardoned in just the same way. That had to be a chilling moment for you, because you were the U.S. pardon attorney. That's why I say that.
Yeah, it really was very shocking, Mark. That happened on the first day that Donald Trump was in office, and I was the pardon attorney, and I had no knowledge that that was coming, no advance warning that that was happening. It never occurred to me that they would do that without giving me any notice. It's something that, of course, the president has the prerogative to do under the Constitution, but the idea that it would be done without consulting the pardon attorney and that it would be done on that tremendous scale and scope that you described, where everybody gets a pardon, is really just shocking and chilling and not something that I expected to see. One really upsetting detail for me personally is that I have now been replaced in the role of pardon attorney by a person who is an election denier. His name is Ed Martin. He's a person who was part and parcel of the January 6th uprising. He described that day as like Mardi Gras in Washington, D.C. He has been a huge defender and supporter of the January 6th pardon recipients. And just over the weekend, he retweeted something suggesting that January 6th was a hoax and that it was a conspiracy that was actually orchestrated by people in the FBI. So that person who is espousing falsehoods about January 6th and claiming that it was started intentionally by the FBI now occupies my old job of pardon attorney, which is really just a very disturbing development for the American people. He also has another important job in the Justice Department. He's the director of what he calls the Weaponization Working Group, which is a group that is dedicated to investigating Donald Trump's political enemies. So on the one hand, he's got his hand on the lever of punishment with the weaponization group. And on the other hand, the lever of rewards with doling out pardons to people who are MAGA supporters. He is really just a terrifying person. He's not a serious lawyer. He has no qualifications for this job, and he's got a tremendous amount of power in the Justice Department.
Wow, that's so very scary. I also saw, Liz, that some J6ers who've received these pardons are now going after the government and suing the government. So I mean, insult to injury is like the adage that doesn't even approach how offensive that is.
Exactly right. There are a bunch of different types of lawsuits that have been filed. Some are claiming that they were wrongly prosecuted and seeking damages. Others are seeking the return of the money that they paid as part of their sentence. Many of those folks had to pay back the costs of property damage that they caused on that day, and they're asking for their money back. In some cases, they have gotten their money back, and now the taxpayers will foot the bill of this tremendous amount of damage that was done to the Capitol, as well as the injuries that were caused by these police officers. So the pardons have really opened up sort of Pandora's box with a whole side set of issues that are now arising in the courts that will probably continue to be litigated for years to come.
Liz Oyer, this brings me to another thing that you know so well, and that is sort of the ripple effect of pardons and clemency. And there has been, and we've reported on it here for years, there have been some high-profile frauds that have been perpetrated by business people. You know, they say, oh, I've got an electric car company, I'm looking for investors, whatever it might be. That's an actual example. And millions are then funneled into what is completely a fraudulent exercise. That's just one example. There are a bunch of them. So the government, finally putting together a bunch of facts and evidence, is able to seek and get a criminal prosecution and conviction. And then Donald Trump came in, and he literally just pardoned all of these people who perpetrated all of these frauds on all of these people. And then this gets to the other part that I just wanted, you can review this with some specifics, because I love how you break this down. The penalties that they pay, which are part of the adjudication, those penalties are then waived.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Donald Trump has been granting pardons primarily to people who are convicted of large white-collar fraud crimes, so crimes that involve stealing or cheating other people out of money. And one example that you noted is this guy, Trevor Milton, who created this company that was supposedly building the world's first electric-powered semi-truck. And many pension funds invested in this. Working people had retirement funds that were invested in this company. And the whole thing, it turns out, was a fraud. He created a commercial that showed supposedly a working prototype of the truck. And it turns out that they had actually pushed the truck up to the top of a hill and then rolled it down the hill to make it look like it was working, because the whole thing was a fraud through and through. He cheated his investors out of almost $700 million. And he went on to donate almost $2 million to Donald Trump as a result of his donation. And he also hired Attorney General Pam Bondi's brother, Brad Bondi, to represent him. And he lobbied for a pardon, and he got a full pardon very early in the Trump administration that wiped out his obligation to repay nearly $700 million that his investors lost. So those people are out of pocket that money, and he has not paid back a dime. It's really quite shocking.
It's sickening, because as you say, it's not just a bunch of rich guys who are the investors. It was, as you've correctly identified, pension funds and average people who didn't even realize that they're invested in this as a result of a group of investments that their pension fund is involved in. And he was just one example. I mean, this is one of the things I love about your Substack. You lay it all out there, and it's, in the collective, it approaches $2 billion that they've been allowed to skate on. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's really incredible. There's another really stark example of the pay for play aspect of the pardon system. There's this a man named Paul Walsack in South Florida who's a healthcare executive. He employed doctors and nurses for nursing homes, and he was skimming money off the tops of their paychecks. He used the money to buy a yacht and other luxury goods. He was sentenced to serve 1.5 years in prison and to pay back the money. And the judge who sentenced him said at his sentencing hearing, "I am sentencing you to prison time, even though your lawyers are asking me not to, because I want to send the message to the American people that wealth is not a get out of jail free card in this country." Then, shortly after the sentencing, Paul Walsack's mother paid $1 million to attend a dinner with the president at Mar-a-Lago. And days later, her son got a full pardon from Donald Trump. So he doesn't have to spend a day in prison and he doesn't have to pay back that money. It's hard to imagine a more straightforward quid pro quo than that. It's just a total corruption of the pardon power and a total abuse of the president's discretion to grant pardons.
It's one of the things about America, you know, Liz, that it was the sense that on some level, and we all understood that if you had money, you could manage the justice system more broadly through good attorneys and et cetera. But beyond that, there was sort of a sense that no one's above the law. And again, we can argue about, you know, the fraud of that and maybe that, you know, there were always favors done on some level. But this is, without question, another universe of patronage going on.
Yeah, I think what's really changed, Mark, is that in the past, we all were at least striving toward a system of equal justice. I can tell you as a former public defender that we never achieved that ideal of equal justice under law. There have always been disparities in our justice system, but we were always striving for that goal. Prosecutors, defense lawyers, judges, everyone was working toward making our justice system as fair as possible. That is out the window now. Donald Trump has overtly embraced the idea of a two-tier justice system where his friends and donors get special treatment and those he doesn't like are treated harshly, unfairly, and punished just by initiating prosecutions against them in some cases. So he really has openly and overtly embraced the idea that our justice system can treat people differently depending on the whims of the president.
And there's a reputational damage that America is suffering now in a lot of different ways. And the justice system is one of those ways. It really has changed the way you look at someone who's serving in this administration. I mean, I'd say it's a blessing in a way that you got out of there. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of life challenges as a result of this situation. But the reality is that those who are working right now at the Trump Justice Department are facing some real questions as to, you know, how does that look? I look like I'm a henchman to a guy who just wants to open up a can of, you know, whoop ass on his opponents.
Yeah, the lawyers who are still in the department are facing difficult decisions every day. And, you know, some of the things that are being asked of them, you could lose your law license. You could be in violation of your duties as a professional if you take some of the steps that are being asked of career professionals. So that is forcing some folks to quit or be fired, and others are just trying to navigate as best as they can day to day. In my situation, I wanted to stay on because I felt an obligation to try to protect my team. I had a team of about 45 people working under me in the department, and I felt very dedicated to that team. And I really wanted to protect them throughout the cuts in personnel, the DOJ fork in the road buyout that was offered, which sort of terrified and traumatized everyone about losing their jobs. I wanted to try to protect my team. But for me, you know, I believe that once you compromise your integrity, you cannot get it back. So I was not willing to compromise my integrity. I was not willing to make this recommendation about rearming a domestic abuser, because that's very dangerous. And so I knew that maybe I would lose my job over it, and I did. And in the end, you're right, there was some sense of relief that came with that, because it stopped the daily pressure of having to make hard decisions about how to navigate this environment where there's so much pressure to do whatever is in the political interests of the president. But, not having those career experts in the department, it just has taken away all the guardrails and allowed the president to plow forward with so many corrupt actions that we're now seeing the consequences of.
The score of lawyers who worked under you, are many of them trying to hang on because they have kids in preschool? And that's the thing. I mean, these are real people with real families and real concerns, or are they too kind of eyeing the exit?
Yeah, most of the team has since left since my firing. I believe the office is down to about 17 or 18 people from around 45 when I was fired. And everyone is really facing challenges in terms of whether to stay or whether to go. The problem in the DC area where my office is based is that the job market is now very challenging because so many people are coming out of the Justice Department and other federal jobs. And so for lawyers to find a new job in this region, and for non-lawyer professionals as well, is very, very difficult. But the Justice Department really has been gutted. There was an article that came out this morning in Bloomberg Law that said that about a third of career professionals have left the department since this administration started, which is really a huge number and a huge amount of knowledge and expertise that is out the door. Many of these people have either not been replaced at all, or they have been replaced by people who are just political operatives, like Ed Martin, who replaced me, or inexperienced, unqualified lawyers. We saw that in the case of James Comey and his indictment. The prosecutor who was appointed to secure that indictment is actually an insurance lawyer by training. She has no experience whatsoever in criminal law. She's never prosecuted a case. She's never been involved in a criminal case before, period. And she actually had to get tutored by Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, in how to present a case to a grand jury so that she could go in there and get that indictment against James Comey. She has no business being in that role. She is a sham prosecutor, and she was put in that position for the sole purpose of seeking that indictment against James Comey because none of the trained, experienced career prosecutors in that office were willing to do it.
I saw that she double signed something that she wasn't supposed to. She misspelled something on the complaint. It was a short complaint that didn't really detail anything. Of course, Siebert, who I think, and Liz, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Eric Siebert was kind of a MAGA guy. He's a GOP guy. He's the guy that Trump forced out because he said, look, I've been investigating this. There's no evidence of criminality here against any of these people, Letitia James or James Comey or any of these people. And then Trump essentially said, okay, you want to do it? You're out. And I'm going to hire my insurance lawyer. And then it is, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Siebert, you're right, is a conservative guy with Republican ties, but he also is an experienced career prosecutor. And so he's familiar with the norms and the rules of engagement for federal prosecutors. And he wasn't willing to go around those rules. He insisted on following the basic principle that you bring charges only when they're supported by facts and evidence. And when he wasn't willing to set the facts and evidence aside and plow forward anyway, he was removed from his position and replaced by someone who is really just a political operative masquerading as an attorney.
Wow. I want to talk more about this Ed Martin guy on another show, maybe with you, or even if you're not around. I just think that it sounds to me like that's all part of the sort of jihadism that has really defined this presidency. We're seeing it now with the James Comey prosecution. I have no love for James Comey. I think he served up an election to Donald Trump. But that said, I also feel as though that the justice system should, on some level, reflect real evidence. And it's funny. My sister was also a public defender in New York. And she told me at the time, I remember, that no one knows their case as well as these people that I'm defending. She said, they're like lawyers, but imagine like a lawyer only knew one case really well. Did you find that to be the case?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. The James Comey situation, it's not about James Comey. It is about all of us. It is about fundamental principles of the American justice system. I mean, there are legitimate criticisms of James Comey that are coming from both sides of the aisle, but what his case is really about is basic principles of justice in our country, and can the president use the Justice Department as a tool to settle personal grudges? the question that this raises for me is, where does this end? Donald Trump has made it clear that he has a list of enemies and he's going to go down the list and try to get indictments against as many of them as possible. Will that extend to anyone who speaks negatively about the president? Will that extend to anyone who didn't vote for the president? It's very scary to think about what the consequences of that could be if he really carries it out as far as he could, and it puts all Americans at risk. So regardless of what you think about James Comey, we should all be very frightened and disturbed by the way in which that indictment was obtained and what it means that the president is now overtly and publicly using the justice system as a tool of revenge.
I'm so glad you say this, because this brings me to the last question, which is really what you hinted at, which is, can the president, in an expressed way, broaden this to include all dissenters? And I would consider Democrats are dissenters, anybody on the left who is expressly pledged an allegiance to another party, however he wants to define it, or it's just, it's just a thing where you don't actually define it, which is probably more Trumpian. Can he bring that kind of sort of mass characterization of a group of people in America as enemies of the state, in effect, the same way he did with the press, called them enemies of the state? Could he do this and in some way put all of these Americans in legal jeopardy?
He's trying to do it. I think that's exactly what he's trying to do with this idea of characterizing Antifa as a domestic terrorist group. Antifa is just really a loose collection of people. And when Donald Trump says Antifa, he doesn't mean any specific group. He means people on the left who oppose his policies and who speak out about it. He means people who are dissenting against his policies. And he is trying to label those people domestic terrorists so that he can justify prosecuting them broadly without any evidence of specific misconduct by individual people, but as part of some broader cause. So he is looking for ways to prosecute his political opponents or people who don't support him en masse, and that is one example of it. I don't know how far he will get with that, but he is trying very hard, and a lot of historical safeguards in our legal system are failing us. So it is a time when levels of alarm are rightly very high.
Well, he's going after FBI agents who knelt during a Black Lives Matter protest. You could then extend that to, if you view that as something that's actionable, you could view everybody at that Black Lives Matter protest as enemies of the state or dissenters or domestic terrorists, however you want to term it. It just seems like the door is open. It's a scary time, Liz. I'm troubled by it.
It really is, Mark. It's a very scary time to be an American.
I have links to your Substack under this video, and just so appreciate your work. I know this world of independent media and everything can have its challenges, but I think you're just performing a terrific public service. And so I know it's different than the old public service, but wow, we love you as a guest, and I hope you'll come back and visit again.
Absolutely. Have me back anytime. Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate the conversation.
All the best. Yep. Liz Oyer, everybody. Right on. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, she's great. Oyer Lawyer is her Substack. Oyer Lawyer, but we'll have a link to it under this video. Yeah, good stuff. Kim, I'm at a fork in the road.
Oh, what are my choices?
Well, I wanted to see, first of all, do I owe a mention or at least I don't like to do all these things at the end of the show. I thought we've discussed this. I want to be able to give comments.
Why are you yelling?
Some air, not just at the end of the show.
You were busy.
Charlene Slemons with a super sticker for $10. Come on.
That's nice. Thank you, Charlene.
Big shout out. Give you a big shout out, Charlene. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah.
Thank you. We are a crowd-funded show, so we make a big deal out of the crowd that funds. Jesus is a fact. You can't run away from Jesus. Lasco for $2. Yeah.
And I actually banned Lasco.
Oh.
Gone. There's too much going on with
too much Jesus.
Is
that your problem, Kim? You can't embrace the Lord and Savior. Is that your problem? I mean,
you do not know what you are talking about.
I'm outraged by it.
Why are you yelling?
I think Lasco and I should do his own show, the Jesus show. We could call it.
Do your Jesus thing, but come on now. Here's another one.
Brad Bondi, brother of Pam, is leading the TikTok deal. CCP controls Bondi. Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't know that.
Luke Desmond from Paul Hastings, where Brad Bondi, I can't barely read it. Hang on a second. Luke Desmond from Paul Hastings, where Brad Bondi is from, is CCP a running dog. I don't know about those specifics. I do know that it is true that this is a gift. The TikTok thing is a gift. That Bondi's brother's involved is doesn't surprise me. That it's being gifted to Larry Ellison doesn't surprise me. Larry Ellison is in the Trump constellation of those who are very close to him. And I would say in this TikTok deal is, again, a gift to those who are the billionaire class close to Trump. Trump's cabinet is the billionaire boys club. And so the reason you should be concerned with TikTok is the same reason you should be concerned with the control of media coming down to a handful of people. And so Larry Ellison now would actually be more powerful than Rupert Murdoch with control over TikTok and the likely control over Warner Brothers and the associated properties. So this is a big news organization that Larry Ellison and his son particularly is involved in. His son is the next generation. So again, I'm not sure, again, how the TikTok deal specifics are going down on some level. Well, I know on a big level, it is as I've just described. I can't believe how the Americans at that golf tournament acted so very badly. What did the Americans do?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Vicky, because I have this article in here for Mark about, here's the headline, U.S., it's from The Guardian, so it's, from the British perspective, U.S. fan ugliness at the Ryder Cup was merely a reflection of Trump's all caps America.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
I love that take.
Isn't that great? And then
take.
I see someone using all caps in the chat, but that is how they perceive us, is someone, are people that will hurl these, horrible things about insults about the families of the golfers and yelling things and being really, really nasty. That was bad behavior.
At a golf tournament, it's particularly not accepted. You kind of are used to that kind of thing at a baseball game or a football game. There's a little more heckling,
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this, to be serious about it, there has been a degrading of the dialogue and the discourse, just broadly speaking, in America. It's happened without question. And it does, on some level, reflect what's happening at the top. I mean, the President of the United States White House press secretary today, from the White House, with White House insignia on the social media posted what to Gavin Newsom? Anybody? The F word, F-U.
Oh, that's nice. High class.
That's from the White House. So you've seen a degrading, as I say, of the discourse. And on some level, it just does reflect the bare knuckles way in which rhetoric and disposition toward back and forth has taken on a much coarser tone. So I guess what I'm saying is I agree with that article, essentially. This is from Harry Magnan. It's all Mark, all Monday. Come on. I love that. Great show. Time for a martini at the Red Jack Saloon. Yeah, baby. Come on. That's
It's fantastic.
I think it is fantastic. The Red Jack is a great place in San Francisco. For those who are headed to the Bay Area or in the Bay Area now, you will love it. Go by and say, hey, for us, there it is, the Red Jack Saloon in San Francisco. Truly will enjoy.
Morning.
We've known them since we were on the radio.
Yeah, we have.
So the people who own the Red Jack Saloon live above the saloon, which to me is always, it's always felt like there's a sitcom there or something, right? But kind of Cheers-ish, I suppose. But in the Cheers reboot or whatever, you know, the owners, Lori and Mark, live right above the Red Jack. I don't know. We really love them, and so that's the story there. But thank you, Harry, and enjoy that Marktini. There is a Marktini. They've named it for our show. And I think there's a Kimikaze for Kim.
There's a Kimikaze, yeah.
Yeah. Biden should have jailed Trump in the last 6 months of his term. Biden has had total immunity to do it. Instead, he was at the beach, says Gerald Neal. I think Biden he's just an institutionalist. It's what I told you when he was president. I never really liked him for that reason. But I mean, please, compared to what we've got, oh my God, it's not even, but when he would worry about the institutions of power being weaponized that way, I think that's basically where Biden would be on that. Here's Roger. Our family just spent a week in Portland. We enjoyed it. The city's very quiet. Nice. No riots or insurrections. Yeah.
Nice family vacation.
When does the insurrection start? I mean, it's all right.
Who is having that conversation?
Exactly.
That whole insurrection thing, that's bad for tourism.
It is really not cool. Lucy McAllister, thanks again for that $20 super sticker. Right on to you. You know, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah,
I have to tell you, because it doesn't look like we're getting to news today, that today is National Coffee Day.
Are you kidding me?
It is National Coffee Day.
Why didn't we book Cliff from Coachella Valley Coffee today? That would have been a great thing to do. Let me have a...
Yeah. I will tell you that a recent National Coffee Association survey found 2/3 of American adults, or 66% of us, drink coffee every day. The average, about 3 cups, the average for most coffee drinkers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I am huge fan of coffee. I've already had a couple of cups today.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
There is no thing in my cup but Coachella Valley coffee, always. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, you can find the Clarity Blend, which I'm over the moon for. The Clarity Blend is so good. What I've done now is I've blended it with the Ocotillo Espresso today, and it is so very special.
Now you have clarity and a little Latin kick in your step.
But what you need to do is drink it out of one of our merch cups, which we'll show you in a second. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Do use our discount code because they're teas and coffees and spices. I mean, it's a boutique roastery. They take such pride in everything that's there. You will adore everything that comes to your home from Coachella Valley Coffee. So CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use Mark T at checkout for 10% off. And again, under everything, under the teas, under the coffees, under everything that there is on the site, there are tasting profiles. So you know exactly what you're getting, and you can just dial in exactly what you want. And then they have subscriptions and all the rest of it. Everything that you order, 10% off with Mark T at checkout. So CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Anything else happening in the news that I need to be aware of? In the Birdcage movie, says Wes, Nathan Lane and Robin Williams lived above their club, just like the Red Jack owners live above that saloon. Isn't that interesting? I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Wes Theory, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you for that. Yeah. That was a good movie. I was cast in that movie.
What? As what?
Yeah. As a reporter. That was something I'd normally cast in reporter anchor.
Spot.
Yeah. I pretty much only got called for that stuff. But I, of course, distinguished myself in a lot of different work, Kim. I was in The American President, as you know.
Do you know who I am?
Yes.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Saying that I had an oeuvre, a compendium of the work that I'd done. And so I went into audition. And here's why I mention it, because it was one of the most significant things. And some people won't be able to get what I'm saying, but others will, meaning you might be too young for this. But if you know the world of entertainment at all, you know the power of Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols, brilliant director, writer, producer. And we had, there's been books about him, and we had one of his biographers here on the show. So Mike Nichols is directing the movie. So he handles so I go in to audition. And first of all, it's amazing that you would audition the reporter role, like in front of this legendary director. So just to meet Mike Nichols for me was incredibly exciting. So I go in to meet, for my audition, just to read the reporter thing. And there he is, Mike Nichols. And I go, oh my God. I said, this is such a thrill for me to meet you. And his partner, as a comedy team coming up, his partner was a comedian named Elaine May, who also went on as a writer, director, producer. She's legendary, okay? And it was Nichols and May. That was the comedy team. And then again, as I say, she went on her own and just became this robust creative force in Hollywood. So I say, such a thrill to meet you. I've been, such a fan of your work through the years. And then he says, and he's pointing to someone behind me, is Elaine May. It was like, and I went, are you kidding me? This is great. And we can stop right now. I'm loving this. I said, it's such a pleasure to meet you. These are legendary people, true living legends. So, at the time, living legends. So I went on to read the part. I got the part in Birdcage.
Oh, really?
Yes, but, and this is what you could consider me, like many of the decisions I make about my career and stuff are motivated by this kind of thing. It was an all-night shoot. And I had a lot to do. I still had my job on the news and all this other stuff. I just had a schedule that wasn't going to accommodate an all-night shoot. And so I said no. And they gave the role to somebody else, And of course, the movie came out and it was a big hit and all the rest of it. Look, it was a small part, super small part, as you can imagine. But it would have been good. Yeah, I should have sucked it up. I turned down another movie like that didn't go on to be that. But to work with Mike Nichols and to meet Elaine May was such a thrill. But that's the story of Birdcage. And I'd forgotten that. You're right. In the movie, they live above that club. It was like it was like a review club, like a cabaret club. So yeah. Anyway, happy Coffee with a Friend Day, says Angel in the Bay Area, the $5 super chat. Thanks everyone for the show. Everyone, y'all. Yeah, that means you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, that's a shout out to you when they say y'all. And the most important part in Day After Tomorrow, says Angel in the Bay Area. Thank you for recognizing my work. The weatherman in The Day After Tomorrow, says Angel in the Bay Area. You should have been dancing, dancing, dancing. Yes. Bust a move. Well, thank you, Angel in the Bay Area, for remembering my work in Day After Tomorrow. It was a pivotal sequence in the film, of course.
Do you know who I am?
Yes,
I'm kind of a big deal.
But I wouldn't have been able to dance. The world is ending as it's coming together with all these superstorms. It would have been inappropriate for me to dance. Would have been so cool to see you in that movie, Mark. Yeah, maybe, says Angel in the Bay Area with a $10 super chat. Yeah, thank you. I would point you to some of my other great work and other great films. The American President was that really was something. I was on with Richard Dreyfuss. That was the movie with Michael Douglas, Richard Dreyfuss, and Annette Bening. And that was the very best. Hollywood Stories. I could tell you that's a great story, only for one moment. I'll tell you this very quickly. So I get cast in The American President, which is really exciting for me. And she says it's a name role, which is really like you're not reporter number 2, you're not anchor number 1, you're not moderator. You have
Who's she, the casting director?
Yeah, Jane Jenkins is her name. Uh-huh. And so I'm excited, not even knowing how excited I should be. It was my first audition. It was really great that I got it. So it's a Rob Reiner movie, The American President, written by Aaron Sorkin. So it's like really great pedigree. So I go on the day of the shoot. I'm all nervous. I remember driving there. And I arrived to the makeup area, and there in the chair is Richard Dreyfuss, the actor Richard Dreyfuss. He's in The American President. He kind of plays the bad guy, sort of like a bad, like GOP senator kind of, but super arch guy in the movie. Attack dog kind of guy. So I sit next to him. I just said, hi, nice to meet you. And there he is, Richard Dreyfuss. Thanks, Tony. You're so good with the hustle. So, but here's the best part.
Thanks, Tony.
So I didn't say anything. He's reading the paper. I didn't want to bother him, Rob Reiner comes in. He's the director. And he doesn't even look at me, okay? But he says to Richard Dreyfuss this, and this is the greatest thing to hear. He said, now remember, Richard, this is a pivotal sequence in the movie. And I'll tell you, Kim, I don't remember what he said after that because it didn't matter. It just didn't matter. I knew at that moment, this sequence will stay in the movie. No matter what, they are not cutting me out of this movie. Right, exactly. And so that was the greatest moment of The American President for me in the shooting, was just hearing that. Yeah. And so I had a great back and forth with him. We rehearsed it and everything. It was really, really cool. So that's show business stories. What can I tell you? I'm delighted to be able to share. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
There was a lot that we got to today, but there's even more that we'll get through tomorrow. Isn't that right, Kim? Please tell us what tomorrow looks like, Kim McAllister.
We have David K. Johnston on the show tomorrow. I do believe that Tech Tuesday is going off as well because Jefferson Graham is home for a minute and will be on with us. So we got David K. Johnston, we got Jefferson Graham. Going to be great.
Also, we'll talk about AI tomorrow in a big way, and there's a lot of a ramp up to Halloween that involves American business. I'll just say that. Also, the Epstein file issue begins to take on more significance tomorrow. We'll get into that. There has been an announcement of a release of some files. I will give you that story tomorrow. Also, the growing specter of a harder line even than has been seen in the world of immigration and the Venezuela situation as well tomorrow. And now,
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your support and love for the show.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
We're out of time. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. After Party Live going on. Till then, bye-bye.